All right. All right. Well, here we go. So just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thanks to our panel for being here. My name is Mike Morgan. I'm the board chair of APA's DC chapter, and I'm joined by Matthew Ricola, who was just speaking. He's our chapter director. In case you're not familiar with APA, we're a nonprofit trade organization built by photographers for photographers. And now in our fourth decade, APA exists to provide business tools and creative inspiration to help photographic artists of all levels run a smarter, more creative and profitable business. And I want to just quickly let you know about a few events we have coming up. On March 25th, we'll be having our Commercial Photography 101 event. It's a discussion of photography as a business and featuring a panel of commercial photographers from different genres. And this is also going to be a prerequisite for the photography mentorship program that we just launched. Then in late April, we'll have our women's photography panel, and the topic of discussion is going to be discrimination in the workplace. And in May, we'll have our annual portfolio reviews for professional and leadership level members of APA. This will be our first time doing it virtually, but it'll allow us to have art buyers and producers from around the country participating as reviewers. So we're pretty excited about that. Those exact dates will be announced soon. So stay tuned through our website. It's apadc.com. And please make sure you're subscribed to our mailing list as well. And all right, and with that, let's get started with the program. I'd like to introduce our moderator and fellow board member, Eli Mayor Kaplan, and go ahead and take it away, Eli.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Hey, everybody. It's so good to see you. We've had over 300 RSVPs, which tells us that this is a subject that people really want to know about, and we've got a really great panel to learn from. But before I introduce them, I want to be transparent that we are recording this event and we'll be focusing on speakers' cameras. But if you're all concerned about being recorded, now's the time to turn off your camera. So let's talk about how we're going to structure this event. With so many of you out there and so many really important questions to ask, we've run a tight ship to make sure we can get through so much material. First, please make sure that you're on mute. If you have any questions, please put them in chat or we'll be monitoring them. The event will be broken down into 4 sections and we'll be taking 2 to 3 questions between each section. We will take some more questions after we're done, but we want to be respectful of our panelists' time. The 4 sections that we'll be covering are why, the process, analytics, and deeper questions. We won't have time to go into specifics of things like cameras and phone brands, shooting technique, etc. But if you're interested in these things, let us know and we'll see if we can get you some information. So let's meet our panelists. In alphabetical order, Jennifer Chase. Jennifer Chase is a food, travel, and lifestyle photographer and creative director based out of Washington, D.C. Jennifer first learned to cook with one pot, a spoon, an open fire, and a village full of teachers while a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa. Her travels and her curiosity about culture, ritual, and the ways we connect around food have informed her food photography and food styling. Her clients include the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Four Seasons, the Cayman Department of Tourism, Grand Marnier, and many more. She's also the creative director of Edible DC. Joshua Cogan. Joshua Cogan is an Emmy award-winning photographer and anthropologist whose work has taken him to 65 countries to produce his unique brand of ethnographic storytelling. Using his deep love and curiosity for culture, ecology, and imagery, Cogan has consistently produced work across print, motion, and digital platforms. His clients include the National Geographic, the Smithsonian Institution, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, Puma, New Balance, Newsweek, ESPN, The New Yorker, HBO, the Discovery Channel, and many others. DC City Girl, Lori Collins, is a DC native who loves to capture the street and city life as a local might see it. She is photographed for a long list of brands, including Visit Washington, D.C., Southern Living Magazine, Google, the Hirshhorn Museum, LL Bean, Toyota, and various luxury hotels. Jarrett Hendrix. Born and raised in Washington, D.C., Jarrett Hendrix is an artist that specializes in many types of creative expression. He is the founder of Creative Hands Studio, which provides a space for local artists to express themselves creatively. It serves as a photography studio, art gallery, and hosts workshops and classes for creatives in the city. As a photographer, he has worked with such clients as McDonald's, Mercedes-Benz, Bose, the National Football League, the Philadelphia Eagles, Apple, Swatch, Jack Daniels, and Barclays, to name a few. He also works as a commercial and residential real estate photographer for clients such as Capital One Careers, Mindspace, Keller Williams, Airbnb, and Remax. Melissa Little. Melissa Little is an independent visual journalist based in Washington, D.C. She worked on staff at 2 Florida newspapers for about 15 years prior to going freelance. She's the founder of A Photo a Day, has been a faculty member of the Eddie Adams workshops, and has also served on the board of the National Press Photographers Association for 7 years, including 2 as president. Clients include Adidas, Pfizer, Starbucks, ESPN, CNN, the New York Times, the Rolling Stone, Sports Illustrated, and AARP. Jarrett Soares. Jarrett Soares photographs community and identity. Through portraiture and long-form essays, he examines how sets of people relate to each other. His fine art prints and books are held in the permanent collections of several institutions, including the Cleveland Museum of Art, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, and the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. Jarrett's images intimately connect readers with subjects for clients such as Adidas Originals, Adobe, Airbnb, Apple, National Geographic, Nike, the New York Times, Time, and Wired, among others. Okay, so I'm really excited to have you guys here. So I'm gonna direct questions at specific people sometimes, and I will, and feel free to, everyone should feel free to jump in when I do that afterwards, after I ask the question. So starting off with Jarrett Soares, in 1 or maybe 2 sentences, what is your #1 goal with Instagram?
So my #1 goal is to be sharing work that I'm excited about, work that speaks to who I am. And since most, if not all of the marketing is taking place digitally now, also offering a little bit of my personality and my interests too.
Mm-hmm. And Melissa, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of that, it's a great answer from Jared. Just trying to show work that's aspirational as well. And try to show clients a little bit of what I want to do and what I think I can do really well for them that, might not be on my website yet, or is kind of a sneak peek or some behind the scenes. I've found that Instagram's a really great place to sort of share that work and say, this is what I'm working on. This is what's coming. Hire me for more of the same, please.
Mm-hmm. And Jarrett, do you have anything you'd like to say about your goal with Instagram?
So my goal with Instagram kind of changed over the years, but now my goal is to share stories. And through the sharing of my stories, through both word and visually. And it's a great marketing tool as well. And those stories and the visual stories and stories that I write help the marketing portion of it. So that's my goal with Instagram.
Mm-hmm. And Joshua?
I think, yeah, like everyone else, it's, there's a hope that it'll kind of connect with people that could hopefully hire you or inspire you. I feel like there's a lot of that too. It feels like a little bit like a cosmic slot machine. Sometimes you like throw a photo in there and then somebody sees it and they're like, oh, I was at this place once and I had that story, or I didn't know, you should come visit me. I'm actually like in that area. So I kind of like the fun of it too. But just like the other photographers, sharing work, finding connections, and hopefully also getting some employment from time to time.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I hope we can address that a little bit later too. Lori, do you have is your goal similar? Or do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I think mine's really close to Joshua's. I want to have fun, and which I think is really important, and to portray my photography through my own perspective, rather than looking in a travel brochure or something like that. I just want to get a lot of information out. I mean, I do love stories as well, like Jared had mentioned. But basically really to just be real and not be stressed out about it and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. And Jennifer? Oh, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to be that person. Yeah, similar to everybody else. So a little bit of unusual, I kind of switched my whole area of photography through Instagram, like not meaning to. Instagram was really just a tool for fun in the beginning, to play with something that I hadn't meant to be. Like food was not something I did at all. So it was really just kind of this fun and building community. And then it ended up having me totally switch and then being able to do a lot more of the travel photography, which I always wanted, but never really had any concrete plan. And so now it really is about getting my work seen. And it's kind of switched and kind of made me think about when I do use it, the amount of people, but really who is seeing it. And so I do think about like who is looking at it and as far as like getting work basically. And also building a community, having a little fun with it. But definitely number one is to have my work seen and get work from that.
Nice. Okay. Okay, so DC City Girl, do you have a long-term strategy for what you post, or do you post images as you create them?
I have no long-term strategy. I kind of like live free, and whatever's happening. Like a good example is last night I was sitting on the couch watching the White House and the moment of silence, and I just saw them there, and I got up and went down there with my camera, and I have a lens that only goes 300, so I mean I wasn't close enough, and it was a little bit on a blurry side, but I guess that's kind of how I roll. And I mean I didn't post it as a post because it wasn't as good, but I did post it on a story and talked about it there, which to me was good enough.
So you're pretty much you're posting stuff as you photograph it.
Not completely. Maybe on stories, but not on my feed. On my feed, I do take care and try to keep, an arsenal of pictures in so that I have, I'm not running out taking pictures every day.
Mm-hmm. And Melissa, how about you? Do you have a strategy, or are you posting images mostly as you create them?
Yeah, I'll post things. I mean, as creating them is tough right now because a lot of the work I'm doing is being held for, weeks, if not months. In that case, I try to get approval from clients to at least do some behind the scenes stuff to sort of tease it for them and for me. And I do use stories like the others here, as a more immediate need, and just kind of showing my day to day, just walking around downtown DC during inauguration day. Well, I can't share the inauguration images yet until they're published, but here's a fun pic from the day, or just my feet, on a rest or something, and just kind of using that as a sort of digital journal in a lot of ways of saying like, I was here. Long-term strategy, no. I mean, it's a bit of a hodgepodge right now, and if you go back probably, I don't know, 10 or 11 months on my feed, I had a bit of a break from Instagram and a pretty strong reaction to the Stephanie Sinclair v. Mashable case, where there was, just some questions as far as the terms of service go, if embedding was allowed with the API, and if people can just lift your images. And I literally archived 4,000 images. It took me days. I would just sit there while I was eating breakfast in the morning and just like cache 100 images at a time when I had the minutes, and it would, I completely wiped it clean. And it was—
What was this case? I don't know if I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, well, it was actually just settled, but for undisclosed settlement. It's Stephanie Sinclair versus Mashable. and Mashable offered her $50 for an image that they saw her post on her Instagram. She politely turned it down and told them what they could actually pay, what the license on that image would be worth for them to run it online. They declined, and they went ahead and embedded it anyway, straight off of her Instagram. And she's married to an amazing lawyer, so he and some other lawyers got together and took Mashable to task. And hopefully that's going a long way in getting the terms of service changed. So yeah, I mean, that caused me to literally go dark and put 4,000 images to bed for a little while, until that dust sort of settled.
Interesting. Okay. Has anyone else had a similar experience with archiving images, or like taking a break?
Oh yeah, like I delete the app like all the time, and like I archive stuff. I'm blanking on like what the app was. I think it was like Hipstamatic. Like going back to like 2014, I'm just like, why was this a good idea? So like a little bit is like kind of embarrassing. So I remember archiving those, just because like I don't like, that's not how I like to photograph anymore. But yeah, like I take breaks, like I archive stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
I take breaks all the time.
Sorry. Oh, you take breaks all the time, Jennifer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. I just want to bring it back to the question. Maybe we can get back to this topic later. But I just wanted to bring it back with you to the question of if you have a long-term strategy for you post, or do you post images as you create them?
I'm sorry, who's this?
Oh, that's for you, Jennifer.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm kind of coming off of like a not announced break, but like where I was just not posting very much or paying any attention. So I have not been. It was kind of just like, oh, let me just post this. But actually about to do this kind of made me, oh, maybe I should think about my Instagram account a little bit more again. I think COVID, everything just kind of, it was just hectic. But looking at it, I did go back and kind of delete, and I don't really have a long-term strategy. I do look at my account and kind of look at it and be like, am I happy with this? Because sometimes it's very easy to, like, a lot of the photos that'll be popular and will get a lot of likes, I don't even necessarily like that much, or they're not ones that really resonate with me. I took it, so it's obviously not one that I hate, but it's just not one that I like a lot. And so sometimes I have to kind of look back at my account and be like, is this how I want to be seen as a photographer? And so I'll go and delete ones, even if it's ones that, had more likes or were more popular, just because I want to look at it as a whole and think, is this how I want my work to look or to be represented? And is this what I want to be hired for? Is this, is this what I want, art directors to see and editors? And so I don't know if you call that a strategy, but it is kind of looking at it and thinking, is this how I want to be represented on this platform?
And Jarrett, I don't think you've answered yet.
I haven't. So I don't really have a long-term strategy for my posting. I would say that I post in 3 different ways. So if I'm doing like a sponsored post, then that's kind of, there's a strategy behind that. I have to post at a certain time and things like that. But other than that, if I have a story that I want to tell, because usually when I'm posting on Instagram, there's a story first, and then I go out and I search for the photo to match that story. So that's another way. And that's just kind of would be the same as if me walking around and I see something that I like and then I take a picture. So a lot of my stuff that I post is more than likely it's real time or right after I take it. But I have no long-term strategy. It's, for the most part, it's pretty quick because I could transfer the images from my camera to my phone pretty quickly. So, and I always have a camera with me. So, or if I use my phone. So there's not really a long-term strategy for me.
Oh, wow. So you're posting them like right after you take them, pretty much.
A lot of times, if I'm driving to work in the morning and I see the sunrise and it looks nice, then that's the picture that I'm going to post that day.
Okay. And you guys can feel free to, again, also jump in like whenever, if you have something to say. And Joshua, how about you?
It definitely changes from time to time. I went through kind of a sprint this winter where I was like, I'm going to post a picture every day. I'm going to be dedicated, kind of like dedicated to like putting my work out there, because I can really, I don't know if any of you guys, I can get very frozen. Right. I'm like, well, what do I want to represent me, and what am I shooting right now? And I feel like I do all this stuff. And then I get kind of like, then I'm like, no, I need to show my portraiture. No, increasingly, I think what I'm trying to figure out is just how to really cultivate where my kind of soul is in the moment with the work that I'm trying to produce, and then to carve out an audience from that, because I do find it can be such an overwhelming platform. I find myself getting very overwhelmed with it a lot easily. And just getting fed a lot of like visual information all the time, so it can be hard to kind of hear yourself think. But I also get really inspired, and in many cases by the people that are here on this chat, so it'll like compel me, like be like, oh yeah, that reminds me of an image I took. I want to share it, So it's I think all of us have some of a tortured relationship with it, I would imagine.
Well said. Okay, so Melissa, when selecting what to post, do you take your audience into account, and do you select the pictures with your audience in mind?
It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like, I think it's probably inaccurate for anybody to say that they're not concerned with what their audience is seeing and saying. And, I think we're all a little driven by that dopamine and those likes, and, Instagram and the other social media avenues have been really, really good about, sort of creating just this, this sort of self-perpetuating cycle where, we feed it. I'd love to be able to say, no, I don't take my audience into account, but I would completely be lying. I know how many editors, or I have a good idea how many editors are following me. I see them like my post, and, I want to post stuff that resonates and like I said earlier, ideally gets their attention and brings in work. The flip side for me has been, I've been gravitating towards stories a lot more. And I feel like that's where I let my guard down a little bit, and I'm a little bit more real, And it's not to say that the forward facing, panel of images when you log into my account isn't real, but it's very well curated, and it's what I want you to see, but I think that the stories has kind of been a place that a lot of people have gravitated toward lately, as far as being another outlet. I mean, it goes away in 24 hours if you want it to, but I feel like that's kind of the safe space right now, where I'm not quite as concerned, and I'm a little bit more fluid and a little bit more fun. And it's a weird mental game that we play with ourselves with these things. So I'd love to hear how other people work through it, because I debate it internally all the time, if I should be doing this for me or for them, or.
Yeah, what's your opinion on that, Lori?
Well, I interestingly, I sort of agree in some respects, because I do look at my analytics, not all the time, but I know that there's majority of women who follow my Instagram account than there are men. And it started out, well, when my photography back in the days when I was doing macro photography, then I did street. Now I'm more into historical architecture of the homes, which I really, really love. I noticed that it was like a 50-50 men and women following me. Now it's like 73% women. And so do I cater to them? Maybe. but I do like what I'm doing right now. And I think they like what I'm doing right now, who have my followers. So, I plan it out like that. And the hardest part for me in my feed is to be like, have symmetry to it. I don't have the brain power to lay out my grid like, the city a house, or colors. And to me, my brain does not do that. And I envy everybody's feed that has so much beautiful symmetry on their grid. So I just throw it out there in some respects, but on the other hand, I keep in mind who my audience is.
And Jarrett?
So for me, there was a time when I cared about like what my audience liked. So like I know for a fact, like if I like people started following me because I posted a lot of sunrises at like the monument stuff in DC. And like I know that if I were to post things like that every day on my feed, that my following would grow exponentially. But then came a time where I just don't care anymore. But what happened for me, and everybody is different, but for me it's different, is I tend to get more of a response now on Instagram from my caption. And so I focus more on the caption. And then the pictures come along with it, but it's seemed like, and I, I know that a lot of, and I get a lot of, brand collaborations and, money off of, posting pictures on Instagram. But I've found for me that when I stopped really caring about what I post on my feed, because I'll post a portrait and then I'll post landscapes, and then I'll post a sunrise and I'll post some products, and then it's just sort of all over the place. But while it's not going to help me grow my following that much, I really haven't seen a lack. Well, maybe I have, I don't know, but maybe I haven't really seen a lack for me. And it just makes me more comfortable with my feed, because there was a time where I really, really cared, and it's not healthy, and it really makes you change what you post and what you don't post. And sometimes I just want to post what I want to post. And if it doesn't get me a job, then it doesn't. If it does, it does. But it just makes me feel better. And if you don't want to post a certain thing on one feed, just create another feed. Like I have like a whole bunch of accounts, and they all serve different purposes. And that's just for me so that I can keep it consistent, because I just try to test myself to see if I can be consistent, but I can't ever do that. But I don't know. My feed with the most following is not consistent at all, but it really hasn't been bad for me.
And Joshua?
Yeah, I had a conversation earlier this year, because I've been always kind of like trying to think about how do we always like, how do we grow audiences? How do we kind of get the work that we want? And I had somebody, and I would just share this along. It had me thinking a lot, and I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. But what that person told me was, you don't own your audience on Instagram. That's an illusion. Instagram owns your audience. The algorithm owns your audience. You don't own your audience. So what you need to do is figure out how to get your audience off Instagram. And that may not be exactly what we're asking here, but I've been thinking about that more and more, about how we like take that audience that we have there and start, because we all assume that the platform will evaporate or shift to something else, or just because that's what's been happening, right? I mean, we just know that, either TikTok, Clubhouse, or any of those things. And I certainly can't keep up with all of them. I feel like I'm at a certain age where I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I can like figure out a whole nother gig. So I've been trying to think more about how you kind of cultivate an audience that's really specific. Not specific, but really vibes with what you do. Because the truth is, you need about 1,000 real dedicated people that really like the work that you create, and they can help support you. Those can be editors, those can be people that buy prints, those can be people that are not editors but maybe hire for photo jobs. And so I've been trying to think about that, like really shaping as opposed to like just getting more audience, but really cultivating that core audience that exists within that broader audience that we have.
And where'd you hear what the thousand people who are interested in your work? Where'd that philosophy come from?
That came through another guy, but I think it's a kind of a well-known. I don't think it's. He's a really well-known kind of like business coach, like creative coach guy. I forget. It was transferred to me from that person, but basically the idea was, I mean, it doesn't really say, but like if you have 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
That you can do $100 of business with throughout the year. Maybe they're hiring you for assignment, they're buying a print from you, they're doing all these things. That's a basic income per creative, right? You know, and we tend to think, particularly as well with some of us, because I think we're all coming from really different places. Some of us are editorially focused, some of us are commercially focused, some of us are working for more private clients. Like I, you know, as DC, I feel like we wear a lot of hats. So I've done all three. You know, more I want to feel a little less beholden to particular like wings of my clientele, just because it does feel like a little bit, feels like a little bit like of a cage sometimes. And so I'm always trying to think about like, well, how do I do that? You know, I did a print sale for the first time through Instagram this past year, which generated some stuff. And, you know, I've kind of thought about different ways to kind of reach out to people. So it's just something that I'm thinking about a lot to help me like at least like kind of train my attention a little bit on the platform.
And currently you're linking to your prints through your Instagram, right?
Yeah, I think that's just a legacy from when I did the print sale, but I generally had my website up or an article, but yeah, that gives you a sense. That was the print sale I did over the holidays. And it worked. You know, it was, I won't say like, you know, I have a pretty big following, but I gotta say 9 out of 10 prints I sold were somebody that I had a degree of association with. They weren't like my aunt, although my aunt did get a print, which was very nice of her. But in most cases, it was like somebody that knew me through somebody, and they just want to know. A lot of times people don't know, like, you're going to sell a print. Like, they don't even think about that. So you say, hey, I'm going to sell a print, you know, or, you know, I know Jarrett does amazing work with like newsletters and stuff like that. So I'm also like looking for cues usually on how to do that with like Little Oak Press. I would like to hear a little bit about that. I know it's not quite on topic, but I think that's been pretty amazing.
Oh, Jarrett.
You know,
I was thinking of Jarrett. Yeah.
I could piggyback off of that. Just want to piggyback off of what Josh was saying is that, you know, the real thing, a lot of people complain about the Instagram algorithm, but one thing I think there is a benefit in it, and everybody kind of like wants to know the trick, or how do you gain followers on Instagram or any social media? And I really think it boils down to consistency. You know, if your goal is to build an audience, then you have to give the audience what they want. So if you are a portrait photographer and you post portraits and people start following you for posting portraits, then as long as you post portraits, people who like portraits are going to follow you. And then those people are going to follow those people that follow you. And you're going to keep growing an audience. Now, if I turn around and I've posted, you know, 1,000 portraits on my account, and now I decide that I want to, you know, shoot landscapes now, then those people who are following me because I started posting portraits, they're going to wonder, like, why are you posting landscapes now? We don't follow you for that reason. And they'll unfollow you, or you'll start losing followers because it doesn't make sense. And the other way around, if you are a landscape photographer and you decide that you want to start taking portraits, even if you're really, really good at portraits, even if the quality of your work is good, that's not why those people followed you. And, you know, a lot of people, you get stuck. So is it, do you want to, you know, gain an audience, or you want to gain a following, which is beneficial, or do you want to post an array of things? And, you know, if you are consistent in your work and you are good, as long as being consistent, and there's nothing that's going to stop you from gaining a large following. and that's to me, that's the benefit in Instagram's algorithm, where it benefits for those people who are consistent in what they're posting. And then that's kind of all there is to it, is that if you're consistent in your work, you're going to gain an audience for those people that like what you post. Like I always say, like, Lori, you take beautiful pictures of houses in DC that I've never seen, but the people that follow you like that stuff. But if you post a portrait, people don't follow you for portraits. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just, that's not why people follow you. And like the same for me, people follow me because of landscapes and toys and things like that. And I love taking portraits, and portrait photography is my favorite type of photography. But my portraits don't get a lot of love on Instagram just because that's not why people follow me.
Ooh, I lost my internet there for a second. I don't know if you heard me, but I agree with you, but I think there has to be a balance. You have to add, like I do stories. I don't know if I'm repeating myself now because I lost my connection a bit. I pour coffee every morning, and I started it last year when the pandemic started, so I would know what day of the week it was. And, because we were all staying home, and that got to be a thing for me. Now, every morning for the last year, I have been pouring a cup of coffee. I put the temperature, I put what day it is, and I add music to it. And I also walk. I walk a hell of a lot. And, after the insurrection, I was walking around the Capitol. I was walking where everything, and people were just gobbing onto my stories because they wanted to see what was going on in the city. And, they would thank me. Thanks for walking, the Lincoln Memorial today. Oh, thanks. I really needed to see it. And, there's a conversation that gets created between my followers and myself. I mean, my DMs are like hundreds of DMs, and, I can get 10,000, people looking at my stories because of that. So I really think there needs to be a balance. And I think I like my stories, or I'll pour my coffee, and, I'll do my walks, and then I do my posts.
Right.
So,
Yeah, no, that's really insightful information. Do you, Jennifer and Jarrett, do you guys have anything you'd like to add to the question of how much you take your audience into account?
I need to take a quick break. I'll be back.
Okay.
So I try to keep everything pretty much professional on like the main feed. My hope is that that's an accurate representation of like the work that I want to be doing or am doing. My story is a little bit looser. I'm not really posting like much work, or occasionally I'm posting some work, but it's mostly work of other people, colleagues, interesting things that like I've come across, bands that I'm really interested in at the moment. Yeah, that's really it. I don't know. It's not really like a big kind of strategy.
Gotcha. Apologies for that. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So we have a couple of questions that came in from the chat. Let's see here. Okay. So would you guys say that your posts are essentially a second portfolio? How do you make your Instagram grid different from your website?
I'll jump in. So like, I try to use Instagram, a combo of my main feed and stories as like a small bite. And that way that kind of gets somebody's appetite. And then if they want to, they can enter in, through the links to go to my website. It's been interesting to hear how many editors and art buyers have said that like, oh, like we we're engaging with your work. Actually, nobody says engaging. That's not how people talk. Um, we found your work through Instagram, and like we spent some time on your feed, and then like, you know, we thought your website was like, you know, that's what made us, you know, hire you. So it's small bites, and then like I can kind of expand on like the bigger 360 me on my website.
And you also have, so you have like specific links going from your profile to, it doesn't go straight to your website, it goes to specific links. Are you?
Yeah, notable links.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't want to like, there's like Linktree and like other those types of websites. I just didn't want to create like another username and like login. So I was like, I'll just do it on like my own site, and that'll just be like easier.
Okay, that's interesting. So, okay, so you just created a separate page for links. Okay. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to add about whether you use your grid as a second portfolio? Melissa or Joshua in particular, I think. I've noticed that your images are they're different than what's on your website.
You want to go ahead, Melissa?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the way that I've sort of structured my website is it really is geared more towards commissions and sort of showing a breadth of work from single assignment, showing projects, you know, and just sort of how I think through bigger things. Instagram has really become sort of the home for one-offs and daily things, and you know, stuff that just might not make the website and sort of fit into those pegs, you know. And the way that I came about that is because I want to get hired to do projects. I want to get hired to do day in the life type things for ESPN. I want to get hired to do, you know, sort of longer term projects, and have people, you know, think of me for those. So the singles started to fall away when I got away from newspaper photography, you know, and that felt like a category that I was really using then, because that was all, you know, we had singles and we had stories, and that was sort of how we structured our world and our contest and everything else. But when I think about the work that I want to be doing right now, I want to get commissioned to do bigger things, longer term things, and you know, and things that are more than just a quick hit. So Instagram's really become the go-to for me, just for, you know, for daily stuff, for stuff I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with, stuff that might play into a larger project down the road. But right now it's just kind of floating, and I'd like some feedback, or, you know, just to kind of get some other eyes on it.
So you're using it similar to how you used a photo a day in like testing out how images are seen or appreciated.
Absolutely.
And Joshua?
You know, you know, as I kind of mentioned before, I think for me it's a struggle because I feel like I have a pretty kind of broad both clients, definitely more client base. You know, being a DC based shooter, but I've done a lot of advertising, a lot of editorial, and a lot of portraiture, and sometimes those kind of cross over, sometimes they don't. I've been trying to think on Instagram a little bit more about the lanes I really occupy, and that's just something that I've been thinking a lot about over the last couple of years, because you just can, you know, for me, like running around just doing assignment work over the years starts to like wear down on you a bunch, and which I imagine all of us have some experience with. So just trying to think about, well, what are the things that I really love, you know, like what are the things that I really want to hone in on to with like the work that I'm doing, or I find that are alive for me. So I think like, you know, what Melissa said and Jarrett said about like, what's the work I want to be doing, but also even like, how do I cultivate the audience to just be my own audience for the work that I want to do? You know, so currently I'm thinking a lot about kind of plants and the loss of plant life in the world, and like kind of the age of the extinction, and of plants, which is something nobody's talking about. So I'm like putting up a lot more plants than I would have in the past, or I spent a lot of time shooting trees, which isn't, to a certain degree will get me some client work, but not a ton. I mean, it'll get me a little bit towards some of the doc work I want to do, but the budgets really aren't there. So I'm trying to think, well, how do I self-fund work for what I want to do? And that can be leveraging that audience that I've been able to gather to help support that work. So really trying to kind of carve and shape and think about, and I think glass, and I don't know if this is a direct answer to this question, but I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. I'd be interested to kind of like put this up as a popcorn question. Like sometimes, like when I really like overthink about what I'm going to post, there's something about the aliveness of the post that goes away and it falls flat for the audience, I find, and then other times I'm really acting from this really like place of like inspiration. I feel it, I'm going to share it right away. And then you see this like enormous like reaction to it. So there's a way in which the thought process also like kind of gets in the way a little bit of the connection I feel like people feel between you, the work, and themselves. I don't know if anybody's noticed that, but I don't know, maybe it's a little kind of like thing in my head, but just something I thought about.
Has anyone noticed a similar phenomenon? The overthinking phenomenon?
I usually some of my most engaging posts have been after I've been upset about something and I wrote an extremely long caption and posted like a simple picture, and it's like and it like blows up. It's like I'm angry about something. I'm like, you know what, I'm angry. Let me just go ahead and write the story that I'm talking about and then post this picture. And it's like, oh my goodness, like this is great. It's I guess we've all been photographers for a very long time. So, when you are studying photography, a lot of times when, beyond the social media part of it, you have an emotional connection to your photos, and a lot of times you can tell, like, even when, if like a person's feed, like if they're going through something or if they're having like a bad time or something like that, you'll notice that their feed gets a little darker and the colors change. And when they're happy, it gets brighter. And, like you can really look through a seasoned photographer, you can look through their, social media is the most front facing thing that you have. So you can really look at their feed and tell what was going on with them if you really look at it. And, because no matter what you do, you can't escape that emotional attachment that you have to the stories that you try to tell, even if it's just through pictures. So.
Another question that we have from the chat is, do you find, this is a question for probably people who are working with magazines, do you find that editors reach out to you independently and directly based on the work they see of yours on your Instagram post or stories?
I would say post.
Okay.
Most of the people who look at, for me, my stories are people who already follow me. I don't really have a lot of, every once in a while, because I really don't know exactly who follows me, but it would seem to me that most of the people who really look at my stories are people who, and I could be wrong, but most of the people who look at my stories are people who already, they just look at my stories. And most of my business I get from Instagram is based off of what I put on my feed, rather than my story. But that's just me.
Okay. Okay, here's a question. This is for Lori. Do you schedule your posts in advance? Yeah. Or do you post them like right away?
I do schedule them in advance. I'm usually posting around 8 or 8:30 in the morning. That's a given every day. And in autumn, I had more pictures than I could get through autumn with. So I was posting twice a day. And I still had pictures left over from autumn that I didn't get to post because I took so many. And then I would do at 8:30 at night. So I schedule it, yeah, but it's not an automatic schedule. I'm there posting it myself.
Okay, got it. Okay. Anybody else? Does anyone here use a program to post in advance?
Just the little hands, the little hands.
The little hands.
Yeah, I'm just.
Just the little hands in the morning.
Uh-huh.
Now
Okay,
I won't schedule, but like I will start my caption and then I'll like save it and then post it. But not like in advance, you know, like I use that feature. Like I'll save a post because I have to spell check it just to make sure I don't spell anything wrong. And I still spell stuff wrong. So it's like I have to like save it, then I read them, like, all right, did I say it right? Then I ask my wife, like, does it sound right? And she's like, oh yeah, I guess it does. And then I post that.
I asked my cat.
What's that?
What'd you say,
I
Lori?
said I asked my cat.
for their opinion, for its opinion. Yeah, I didn't even know about that feature. You can save your post before you post it.
Yeah.
Can you save
yeah,
multiple posts?
A draft.
can.
There's a draft folder.
Oh, okay. That's
But don't
helpful.
log out, because if you log
That
in,
either.
all your
Yeah, if
drafts.
you log out, you lose it.
Okay.
Like if you hit if you're typing like a caption, or if you have right before you post, if you hit the back,
Mhm.
like if you go back, it will
Mhm.
ask you if you want to save it as a draft, and you can save it as a draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, so then, here's some other questions from the panel or from the chat. What do we have here? Okay, how do you collaborate and get sponsored from brands you want to work with?
What was the question?
How do you get I guess I know Jarrett's mentioned this a couple times. How do you get sponsorships from brands that you want to work with?
Well, anybody else want to answer that?
I get approached. I get a
Mhm,
DM.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
get a
that's
DM, or I get an email from my email off my front of my profile.
yeah. I would say the same thing. I just, you know, really like random. Like I get like random emails or random DMs. I rather the DMs are I pay more attention to the emails than the DMs. Some of the DMs are kind of weird, but for the most part, the emails, I get emails. Sometimes I just wake up and I have an email saying, oh, you know, we want to work with you for this, that. And then what I do is if I work with a specific brand, because a lot of these brands, they're not the actual brand that reaches out to you. It's the marketing company that represents that brand. And what I do after working with that brand initially, I'll try to build a relationship with, you know, the marketing company, and I follow up with the email saying, okay, well, we had, you know, I had a lot of fun working with you on this particular job or this particular, you know, gig. And then, you know, if you have any more work in the future, I would like to work with you again. And usually if you do a really, really good job with, especially if they're going through a marketing company, they'll reach out to you, you know, after that. And most of my business, you know, in that area is based off of that, like that initial, I'm reaching out to you for this particular reason. And then I'm saying, well, you know, I can also do this. And then I show them my work from there, and then that relationship continues. So like that's, you know, to me, that's what's helped me, is just that relationship after working with that brand initially. But I don't really reach out to anybody, or I don't seek the work. It really just kind of happens. I mean, and I would say it does begin with, you know, the amount of followers you have on Instagram, especially if you get the business to Instagram, because, you know, you're not going to get a lot of work if you, I mean, sometimes you do, but you get more work with, you know, if you have honestly over like 10, 200 or 300 followers. Like that's the reality of it. You know, they're not going to reach out to you and want to do a sponsored post if it's only going to reach a small amount of people. But beyond that, if you get that initial job,
Oh, you cut out there for a second, Jarrett.
I said if once you get that initial, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Once you get that initial job, you know, it's on you to continue that relationship if you want to continue to work with that company.
Is there anyone else here who's done sponsorships with brands or collaborated with brands through Instagram?
I've gotten a couple of reach outs as of late, and I found it to be tough and a little fickle. So I've yet to do it. I did have a guy just offer me 2 electric bikes if I sent him some photos based looking at my feed, but he doesn't want me to post about them. So that was nice. I had ridden
Really?
okay. Well, I had ridden a year ago because I was going on a road trip with my family, and I was like, kind of like, oh, I'll like make content on the road trip, blah blah blah. And he got back to me like a month ago. He was like, sorry, I missed this, but I could use some photos if I send you a couple of bikes. Which is good. I just want to go down to the grocery store with my son. They're not very fancy bikes, so I don't but it was nice to like something like that. I did have another one where a company reached out to me, and it didn't quite seem like necessarily ideal. Like it was kind of like weird. They wanted some content to do with something they were doing about artists and getting good rest. I've done a couple of like brand sponsorship. This was back in the day, you know, kind of pre-Instagram days, and I was generally disappointed. I felt like I was a little misled in how they wanted to like either, you know, they wanted like artists kind of showing you DC or their city, but I felt a little bit misled by how they use the content. So I found brand sponsorships to be a little bit of a slippery slope.
Interesting. Okay, I hadn't thought about that. So I'm sorry. Was that you, Jennifer?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I think for photographers, sometimes it can be tough. You know, I never did a lot. I used to do some, and now I really don't anymore, just because I don't think it's worth it. I think some of the people that are commanding, I do know some people that are commanding very high prices, but there are few, or not very, pretty good prices to do that, but they're pretty few and far between. And so I think for them it's profitable, but I think for most photographers, the going rate, just because if you're kind of focusing more on kind of the Instagram and you're okay just kind of taking these very casual photos that you can do very quickly, and that's your brand and your persona, I think it's fine because you won't spend a lot of time on it. But I think it's photographers that are really picky about how we want our photos to look and stuff, the amount of time you'd probably spend on what a lot of the campaigns are offering most people might not be worth it. Again, that's not for everyone. Some people are getting, you know, higher commissions, but I think for what I found.
Got it. For further questions that are coming in through chat, we're gonna take questions at the end of the panel, and we could ask them then. But I do have a few more questions that we were able to gather. Okay. Let's see. All right. Okay. So Jarrett, this one's for you. Hashtag or tagging people, which is more important? Do you have a strategy for selecting what hashtags you use or who you tag?
So hashtags and tagging people are two different things. Hashtags are good if, you know, you want your feed to, you know, you want your photo to show up in the hashtag. Because I know I follow a lot of hashtags or, you know, specific hashtags that I like to see photos in. So for people who follow hashtags, you know, you see the photos that are similar to those photos that you post that follow that hashtag. I only tag people. I tag people if there are people in the photo.
What about tagging brand, like tagging a brand in a
I'll
photo?
only tag a brand if I am paid to tag a brand. I am not going to tag a brand and I'm not getting paid to do it. So, you know, I'll tag people if you're in my photo, or I'll tag a location just if I'm at that location, but like an actual brand, I'm not going to tag like if I'm doing a photo and I'm wearing a pair of Nike, for example, I'm not going to tag Nike unless Nike's paying me to tag them.
Mm-hmm.
Can I
Just because that's free.
real quick?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I want to piggyback on that whenever you're done. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because it's not. I'm not getting. You know, that's free advertising for them. You know, and I don't want to. I'm not going to give anybody free advertising if that possibility exists for me to get, you know, paid from that opportunity.
So what I was going to say is, you know, I have a friend that used to work at Instagram, and she would tell me that one of the best ways to grow followers, to get seen is by tagging people, by not just adding their name in a caption, but by actually tagging them, you know, in your photo, in your post, because what that does is now you show up in their suggested feed. So when people are looking at Nike, it's going to be like, oh, suggested users, also Jarrett Hendricks, also, you know, Melissa Little, also Joshua Cogan, like whoever's tagged them. So I know you don't want to be a tool for the brand and give them free advertising, but it does behoove you to tag certain things that might get seen if that's an audience that you want. You know, so if you're shooting something like at National Geographic and you happen to tag at Nat Geo, anybody that looks at that Nat Geo feed at that point in time is going to see suggested user Melissa Little.
I agree with that. Now, if I'm at a place like for example, if I'm going to like City Center, DC, for example, right? And I'm at City Center and I take a picture at City Center, I'm going to tag City Center because that's where I am. That's the location that I'm in. You know, that's not necessarily a brand that is a potential client. I don't look at it that for that purpose. But if I was to, you know, like, let's say, for example, I recently did a job with Colgate, okay? So the toothpaste company. And it wasn't through social media, but that's a company that's going to use my photos for the purpose of making money. And if they were to ask me to post that on my feed and they paid me for it, then yes, I would tag them. But if I just happen to take a picture of my kids and we are doing something fun and toothpaste just happens to be in the picture, I'm not going to tag Colgate.
Yeah,
I know
well,
that's confusing.
that makes sense.
Some
Like
toothpaste on the scene.
Yeah, I'm not going to give
in my walks, I wear Rothy shoes, and everybody would always say, "What shoes are those? What shoes are those?" So then I started tagging Rothy, and then Rothy contacted me, and Rothy gave me a promo code, DC City Girl, and everybody that ordered Rothy shoes, and I'd only do it when I was walking, and because I have, you know, these couple colors of them, I started making some.
I think you cut out.
Yeah, you cut out, Laurie. We couldn't hear that last part.
But
Yeah, we can't hear your volume right now for
your
some
money.
reason.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, that's
Sometimes it is important to note, sometimes people will make it look like they are like having the opposite of what Jarrett and Lori said. It is a thing. There's so much BS in Instagram world, and people will make it look like they're sponsored, and they'll tag it, and they'll make it look like they're working because they want to make it look like they're doing all these campaigns, and they're not. They have absolutely.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. You're right. I agree.
No, but it's a thing, and I
for sure.
myself, but I'm like, I know you didn't do that.
And that's why they added the that feature where the tag a brand partner thing that you can do.
And they have to prove it.
What is that?
Yeah,
What's that feature? I haven't heard
So
of that.
so if you have So let's say that you're doing a sponsored post on Instagram. Prior to doing that sponsored post, you can up in the top where you under your name when you have a post, you can put a location. Under that is it's a paid partnership with such and such brand. And in order to do that, you have to have a mutual agreement with the brand that you're working with to allow you to have that as a sponsored post, which is the way that you can, it's proof that you actually are working for that brand. And by doing that, it does allow them to see your analytics when you post. Because a lot of the companies, if you're doing sponsored posts, they want to see, how much it benefits them or how much work it generates them. So that's something that you get from having like a business account and when you start, doing sponsorships with brands.
Okay. Okay, so that's super interesting. I will have a question for starting with Jennifer, and I'd like to ask all of you, how did you guys build your following? So tell us the story behind it.
Where do I start this? So I started, it was a weird point in my life. I had all these kids at once and was like freaking out. I had twins and I had a daughter under 19 months. So I was freaking out and kind of taking a break from everything. And I ended up going to this food photography workshop because it was something that I had never tried. It wasn't something I felt like I had to be good at. And a couple of the girls there were really into Instagram. So then I was like, okay, let's play with this. And so again, I just started doing it for fun, never took it seriously, but just started getting tips from them about, because then of course you get into it and you're like, well, it is that dopamine hit. You want to more people to see your work. So just kind of tagging people, hashtags. And then at some point I decided I really did want to build a bigger following. And honestly, in the beginning, it's just putting a crap load of time into it. I don't do that now. And I think it really shows my engagement, but you would just go on, comment on everything with the hashtag, pick a hashtag that is something, I don't even remember at the time, but different things with travel and food. And you would just comment on a ton of people's stuff. You just do it throughout the day, certain times of day. And the more you do that, the more people see your page and they come back, you would follow people. It's really just engaging and putting the time in. And I think I just made a concerted effort for a good few months. I just kind of decided that was something that I was going to do. I don't know, maybe other people have better ways, but I don't have any good secrets. It's really just kind of putting a crap load of time into it. And to going not just putting on your account, but going on to other people's accounts and really engaging and communicating with them.
Yeah, I think that's something that's not thought about a lot is how do you interact with the people in the brands you're following. Does anyone else have a story they can share?
I do. Go ahead. I'll wait.
I'll go after Lori.
No, well, go ahead.
Me?
Well, okay, I'll take it.
I'll go after you.
Okay, you go after me. You have to remember that this is a social app, an app. It's a social app. So why are you on there? To be social. And when Instagram first came out and I started my account, I was so excited that I had 35 people following me. And so you have to be social, and you have to be social with the people who are like you. And I have to say that some of my best friends today, to this day, and Jared will vouch for that, and Jen too, my best friends I met on Instagram. And so it's about community. It's about being, honest and real, and being social. And I, for me, being DC City girl, I think I have the best name because, people search me out and say I'm coming to DC, or I'll post museum, and they'll ask questions, and they'll start a big conversation on my comments. And or the best part is, that's my house. I've taken a picture of their house. That's my house. Thank you. So I think that I don't, the people that have followed me over these years, I've known them for years, and some of them are my best friends. So, and I love them. So I that's what I have to offer.
So, Lori too, and Jen, like, we've been on Instagram for a long time. Like, from, let's say, the beginning of Instagram, back when you, like, when 100 followers was a lot, and well, for me, my experience was a little weird. Back at the beginning of Instagram, they used to have what was called a suggested user list. And what they would do is, if you ended up on that suggested user list, you would get how many followers? It was, I don't know, it was
about
a lot.
20,000.
Was it 20,000? 20,000 followers a day, per day.
No,
like
not a day.
Was it a day? It was a lot. It was a lot. So back in, I don't know, 2014 or 15 or something like that, I ended up on the Instagram suggested user list because they were trying to promote the company. So they would search out, photographers that inspired the app and, inspired people, and then those people will follow you. And so I ended up on that list, and that put me up to 70,000 followers or something like that. And then some years later, Instagram did like an Instagram purge where they got rid of like a lot of people's like fake followers and like inactive followers. And that put me down to like 30,000 or something like that. And then I gained from there. But like everybody else said, it's a social media app, and sorry. And you have to be social. And that's why I found most of the people who follow me now over the years mostly follow me. They follow me for the pictures, but most of my engagement and most of the activity that I get, and like the DMs that I get, are from the stories and from my captions. And when I really, I use it as a platform to, I look at it like I have, 40,000 followers. So if you have that many people that you can share with, and it probably doesn't even reach to all those people with each of my posts, but if you have a stage, and that stage gives you thousands and thousands of people to speak to or to share something with, you use it to be social or to say something positive. Or my thing is to say something positive that may, give somebody a good day. If I'm posting in the morning and you read something that's going to inspire you for the rest of the day, and I have the audience to do that, then I'm going to use that to my advantage. And I found that using that to my advantage rather than just posting things has, that's what has increased my following, or even the brands that I work with, or even the work that I get off of Instagram, or the relationships that I've made with people off of Instagram are based on the stories. And that's, for me, everybody's different, but for me, that is what has led to the increase in my following. So I don't really have a goal to try to seek out to. I used to try to gain my, I used to try to build my number up and make that a goal, but like it's only grown, my following has only grown mine has only grown when I stopped caring about it growing and just posted, what I feel is my purpose of having all of those followers.
Can this might not be something like other people are gonna like, but honestly, if I was starting right now and I was gonna put some time into a social media app, I don't think, or it certainly wouldn't be, I don't think it would be Instagram, or it certainly wouldn't just be on the feed. Like, it's so crowded now and people are bored. Like, I would take that time and do something really fun on, well, I guess we're photographers, not Clubhouse, but on TikTok, or maybe just go crazy on Reels, or just I don't know. I just think like now, starting now, I don't know. I mean, I'm curious what the other panelists, would you guys, if you're starting over now, would you really spend the time kind of building that audience in the same, or would you kind of do it in a different way? Like, I think I would just like, to me, like TikTok is really fun, or, you know, it just seems more lively. I feel like it's more of a party when I go on there, where Instagram is like another pretty picture, you know, like, you know what I mean? Do you just ever feel like it just feels so static? Like, I don't know. I'm just, this is kind of my more, I don't know if I'm qualified at all to give advice, but if I was completely starting over and was going to just dump some time into it, I would probably pick another.
Really? I agree. I agree with you in a sense. I think that there still is power in Instagram. I think that there's enough people on the app to really, I mean, you can get a lot of work on it. I think now though, I think again, going back to what I was saying about consistency, is if you're consistent and you post one thing and that's what you post, and you will gain a following based off of that. Like to me, that's easier now, is that if you like rocks, for example, like really rocks on Instagram, if you like rocks and colorful rocks and you post colorful rocks, you're going to find people that also like colorful rocks. And there's a lot of people that like colorful rocks. And, you know, as long as you post that, I think that Instagram caters more to that now than they cater to the all around photographer. If you do portraits and all these different things, like right. If you're a food photographer, like if you take pictures of food, people love food. So
or
like
even with food, it's going to be really niche. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I totally agree.
Right. Niche accounts, or niche, I don't know how to say the word, but whatever that account is. But if those accounts that follow that curated, same color, same thing, people, but you can't blame people for that, because people like what they like. And, you know, and they like what, you know, and they want to see the same thing over and over again. And like my sons, they watch the same TV shows every day, all day, without any hesitation. And I could watch Avengers Endgame 100 times, right? But that's just human nature. People like what they like. And if I was to start, like, honestly, I transitioned so I do these edits with like buildings and chop up buildings and stuff. I literally started an Instagram account today to house all of those edits, just to see if I could keep myself focused on that one thing, because I like the way that the consistency of that feed looks. And I want to test myself to see if I can stay in that. I probably am going to do it just for a little while and probably stop it after like a few months, because that's what I do. But if you were to start a thing today, you could grow a following if you're consistent.
So Jarrett, how about you, Jarrett Stories? How did you build your following?
Oh, this is gonna be a fun one. It's pretty much just runoff from places that have commissioned my work that ended up posting it. I've seen a bump because National Geographic followed me, so I'm getting all these like just strange followers. I recently did an AMA, Ask Me Anything, over my IG stories, and that got reposted a bunch and shared, so I ended up gaining followers that way. Oftentimes I'm photographing like athletes or musicians, and if they happen to repost it, you know, on their stories or their feed, and they are nice enough to credit me, I'll end up gaining followers.
How would they even see the photo originally?
What photo?
Like the athletes, you know, like the athletes and other folks who might repost one of your photos. Are they following you and they see it?
No, I think somebody on their team probably just tells them that like the New York Times or like a magazine posted this, so you should probably push it out through your feed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really like a coordinated thing. It's more like casual. But yeah, it's like I haven't like thought of the idea of like growing a following or trying to nurture that. I do like Instagram for like kind of the one-on-one, one-to-one connections, like in DMs. like reaching out to people that like I admire directly through that and having like a quick conversation. But like follower count is not something that I like hold too much stock in for the type of space that I'm in with photography. Like I'm using Instagram as essentially like a marketing tool and like a channel to push out work. Most of my work that I'm doing is not, the final destination is not Instagram. It's like Instagram or other social channels is just kind of like an addition. So yeah, that's, I've, you know, my plan has always been like, make the best work that you can and then share it and get it in front of people unobtrusively. It's really never been about like numbers or analytics or anything like that.
And how about you, Melissa? And I've noticed also you do the AMA, the Ask Me Anything as well.
Yeah, that's been, it's probably been the most fun I've had on social media in a while. And I think what that comes back to for me is just trying to be real and trying to foster relationships and sort of build a community. I get more engagement with those AMAs than anything else that I post or that I do. And even if it's not people asking me questions, it's people commenting on the answers that I'm giving, you know, or sharing their own experiences. And so I've started tagging them in, like, you know, if you create an Instagram story, you can save it as a highlight if you don't want it to go away forever. So I've tried to be smart about saving the really good ones where I do, you know, like a business talk about, you know, the business of photography or the freelance life. You know, if I'm ever having a really slow Tuesday, I'll be like, you know, sit down at my desk in the morning and open up Instagram and just say like, hey, slow day today, you know, ask me anything about, you know, the photo business. You know, yesterday I did one that was like, please no work talk. Like, ask me something fun, ask me something random, you know, and I got like 100 questions, just completely wonderful, you know, nonsensical, fun things, everything. You know, people that follow me on there know that I'm a foodie. People know that I love to read. So it's a lot of questions, you know, about books and what you're reading now and, you know, favorite places to eat in DC. And, you know, and it's just, it's a way to keep building connections with people. And I think for me, that's kind of the beauty of Instagram right now, is just finding a way to sort of have those conversations in that community in a different space.
And Ask Me, AMA is Ask Me Anything, and that is something you do through stories.
Mm-hmm.
And you could there's like a GIF that is a question, right? Is that how?
Yeah, exactly. There's like a little
Mhm.
question button, and you get, I don't know what it is, like 50 or 60 characters in there. So you've got to be brief, but yeah, and they last for 24 hours. So, you know, you can just kind of blitz it. Like if you're on assignment, you know, and you're in some cool country like Joshua is, you can be like, ask me anything about Southeast Asia. You know, I've traveled through 20 countries here. You know, and it's just a good chance for like him to share his knowledge and for other people to have a relationship and a conversation with him. And for me, that's translated into probably the most meaningful part of social media is, you know, like Jen was saying earlier, is just being social and just, you know, finding people to have relationships with and sort of building your little niche community.
It's really interesting because I honestly never thought about Instagram as the social platform that it is. I've always thought like, okay, you have to post 5 times a week and, you know, do stories 3 times a week. But it seems like what you guys are saying is more about building relationships and connecting with people.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, one of the things that I really started doing a lot of once the pandemic hit was just like collaging and like making postcards, and it's just sort of like another artistic outlet. And occasionally I would just post a handful of postcards that I'd finish, and I'd say like, hey, anybody that wants a handmade postcard, DM me your address, happy to send it.
Oh.
And I was sending those things around the world, you know, and like occasionally I get one back, and that's super rad because it's like, you know, like just sent this postcard to Australia and I got one back, and I've got a new friend out of this that we're buddies now, and we have this shared connection.
That's awesome.
I think that even helps for work. You know, I just got, I mean, it wasn't a big one, but I got a small commercial job last week. I had posted a story about a friend, and then she had kind of joking that she was my butt model, and she had kind of joking, like wrote back on her stories. And then somebody from the company that follows her was like, oh my gosh, you guys just seem like so much fun, having fun, and then reached out to me. I think that, like, if you show your personality, like, I mean, as we all know as photographers, they like your work, but they also want someone that they're going to get along with on set. And so if they see someone that, like, oh, it's going to be an easy day because it's, you know, they're going to keep the mood good. I don't know. Maybe you guys had the same experience, but I've had, like, I think frequently that helps with work if they just seem like someone that, like, yeah, I'd want to work with her or him or.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, yeah, since, you know, we can't meet with clients like in person, trying to find ways to show that we're not crazy and that we're chill and that, like,
or we are.
Yeah, or very easy to, like, work with on set. I feel like it's really crucial now. And it seems like Instagram is like the gathering place for, you know, art buyers and creative directors and art directors, and like finding these, like, you know, small slices of, like, set life it's a good thing to consider doing.
Yeah.
I just thought of an interesting question. Do you try to follow people who have a private account, like let's say an art director or art producer who has a private account?
Nope. I don't follow
Okay.
private accounts
That's
unless I
creepy.
know you.
Yeah, unless I know you.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Note
if
to
it's
self.
somebody that I want to follow, I'll reach out to them. Like, I'll request it, you know, and I'll just like, hey, I love the work you've been doing for whatever, you know, or saw this thing that you shot for something, like, would love to follow.
And do you get good results usually?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably 9 times out of 10, people, you know, people are either flattered or like, okay, cool, you're not a weirdo stalker, you know. But again, it's just relationship building. So, like, if it's somebody I want to follow, it's worth putting in the effort just to be like, hey, can I follow and learn from, you know?
And Joshua, how about you? How did you build your following?
A combination of some of all the above. I like of you. I think when Instagram was early on, they made me a suggested user a couple of times. So I had built an initial audience, and, you know, stepped away from the app for a while, you know, like many of us have, and found kind of like the algorithms change, and then most of that audience are, you know, are like kind of ghosts, it seems. You know, you can have these huge audiences and not necessarily get interactivity. And then, you know, featured on some larger accounts pages, which is really nice. You know, I've had Tiny Atlas pick up some of my work and other people share, so that certainly helps build the audiences. Yeah, so it has kind of been changing over the years. And, you know, I think you can have these big numbers, and you know, I think the big numbers serve two things. I think one, like, when you holler at somebody, they're like more willing to take you seriously. Like, they're like, oh, he's got 80,000 followers. Like, maybe I'll like see who the heck this guy is. You know, I, you know, randomly like wrote, I don't know if you ever listened to Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, which is kind of a band I'm a fan of, but it turns out this guy, Alex Ebert, the lead singer, is also this kind of like amazing philosopher, which I didn't know. I randomly like started following this Alex Ebert character, not putting two and two together. And I was like, I really think this guy's amazing. And then I realized, oh, he's like the lead singer of Edward Sharpe. And I just wrote him. And I was like, I just want to say, like, I'm really appreciative of, you know, the words you speak. And he wrote me back, right? And I think, you know, maybe he's just a nice guy, but I think it's also like they see numbers. So it's the same thing with brands and reach outs. The interactivity, you know, I have, you know, a significant number of flyers. The interactivity can be pretty low. But I think with that broad net, you can start, again, finding those audience members that do really resonate with your work and kind of support you. So I think it's easy to see people with like really big followings and be like, oh, they got it easy. And that's just not the truth. Like, I know guys with enormous accounts, you know, 500,000 million followers that don't get a lot of work, you know. So I don't think see that as the be all and end all. Understand kind of the leverage it might give you, or really what you want to do with it, but don't assume like having a really, unless you want to be an influencer, which I think most of us don't, then the number is just the number. Really, like, think about the quality of the audience you're attracting.
I have a question that it might just be particular to myself. I don't know if other people struggle with this, but do any of you guys send in your images for like copyright to the Copyright Office before you post them at the Library of Congress?
No.
If I would give some advice to some photographers, usually technically when you take the images with your camera, they're your images. So adding the copyright and all of that stuff sometimes is not necessary. Even in your in-camera, your camera, I mean, I shoot with a Canon, I don't really know. In Sony too, I think that you
Yeah.
there's the camera itself embeds the copywritten image, especially if you're shooting raw, that you get all the metadata in your photo. So that's kind of proof that you took it. So that's
Eli,
the copyright within you.
I register my work every quarter, and you register published works. Instagram is considered published. The benefit of me throwing those images in the folder that I'm sending to copyright registration is that if, you know, LeBron James decides to take an image that I shot of him and, you know, use it on his own website, as Steve Mitchell, a photographer in Fort Lauderdale, did recently, he just settled for 6 figures with LeBron James because LeBron lifted his image off of Instagram that he had copyrighted. You know, so if you register, you do have a little bit more this sort of ramifications on the legal end and a little bit more ability to collect more than just a typical invoice or a sort of a soulless threat. You know, it then becomes a legal issue. So I literally right here on my desktop, I've got the quarters written out to remind myself when to send stuff in. And I literally just look back through the last 4 months of Instagram every time, and just anything that was published on there, I throw into the folder for the lawyers that register it for me.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so Joshua, I have another question for you. And I'd like to hear from everyone as well. What does a typical Instagram week look like for you? How many hours are you spending on the platform, either creating images, connecting with people, or posting?
So I have not posted at all in 2 weeks because I feel like I've been kind of subsumed with other stuff. There was a period this winter where I decided I'm going to post every day. I kind of do like a winter sabbatical, and I was like, I'm going to post every day. And so I did that. And what I try to do, increasingly what I've been trying to do, again, kind of the encouragement, I've kind of worked with kind of like somebody that's really helped me connect the thread through a lot of my work, is something that you'll hear me kind of returning to. But what I try to do then is like write every day, right? When I'm doing it, right? So what I feel like is I'm getting better with my words. I'm getting better at like actually like, because I do a bunch of writing. A lot of my work, you'll see it. Sometimes I don't, because I just like, I feel like I don't really have anything to say, but I try to use that as like getting really good at like kind of getting to the meat of what I want to say verbally and seeing how that image aligns, and then putting that aside, that caption or those couple of paragraphs I wrote, into a body of work, right? Of like, these are the areas I'm working on. I'm working on a lot of men's work right now. I'm working a lot on like the relationship of people with plants. I'm working a lot on kind of notions of masculinity. So I'll try to like kind of take on those topics on any given day, because there are things that are natural to me. So sometimes I'll just be writing, and then I'll say, what's the image that goes with that? Or sometimes I'll be photographing, and I'll be really like kind of connected to an image and then go off of that. So it comes and goes, and it ebbs and flows, and sometimes it hours. But I try I try to, I guess what I'm trying to say is I try not to think about it as output just for promotion at this point, but rather as input into the larger kind of cohesive bodies of work that I want to do, or like where I want to really be kind of carving my work towards, shaping my work towards. So it's an exercise.
That's really interesting that you start with writing sometimes. Does anyone else have any comments on what a typical week looks like for them with Instagram?
Sure. I usually get on for maybe a couple hours in the morning. And then I also have DMs of my friends that I probably talk to all day long, here and there. I don't set notifications on my Instagram app. They're all turned off, so I go into the app when I want to. And I promised myself that when Stories was invented, that if anybody DM'd me, that I would, if I'm going to put a story out, I'm going to respond to every single DM. And so that can take some time. I try to feel the same about my comments on my pictures, to respond to everybody. And so I can be on there in clumps of times all day long, but by 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, I'm on the couch watching TV.
I don't. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Jarrett.
So I don't post every day. Maybe, I don't know. I'm very inconsistent now. I would like to post every day, but I don't have the pictures to post every day. But I will at least do stories every day, because stories, I feel like I can kind of like, I don't know, I could tell the story within the story and I can have a little more fun with stories. And I use stories to, you know, show other people's work that I like. I don't usually have I don't have notifications on for anything but comments. And then like for the DMs, because I like to respond if I do post a picture, I do like to respond to the comments. But for other than that, not for the likes or anything like that. But I used to spend a lot more time on the app, but I don't spend that much time on the app anymore, just because I'm busy and I have other things that I'm doing, and I don't pay much attention to it. But every once in a while, I'll kind of log in and see, you know, what somebody posts, or I look at a particular hashtag because I want to see the photos and what people are posting. And then I also have post notifications on. So like the people that I like following, or the people that I like, my friends, like for example, like I know whenever Lori posts, because I know when she posts, and I set it up so that I know when she posts. So I see it, you know, and a couple of other people some people that I see on here, they, you know, for the people that I like to, you know, I turn post notifications on. So that's that's when I'll go into the app, and then that'll cause me to go through more pictures and things like that. But that's kind of how I use it.
Okay. Jared, stories. Do you track engagement in analytics, and do you adjust how you post based on the results of those analytics? I'm guessing the answer is no.
No.
Okay. Did you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Does anyone here track analytics and make adjustments based on those?
I am currently managing the Edible DC account, which I would love to hand over if anybody has recs. But anyways, I am currently doing that. And so for that account, I do track the analytics and like, okay, let's put a cheese pull in because everybody loves a cheese pull, and like things to stab me in my heart to post, I'll still do it for that account, just because my publisher wants it. But yeah, so.
I curate the IGDC with 2 others. I'm one of 3 curators for IGDC. So I do have to browse the hashtag IGDC, and we do check analytics. But on my own, I check them, but I don't do anything about them. You know, I figure it is what it is.
Yeah, I found that I tried to follow the analytics once, and it didn't seem to work for me. It didn't seem, I mean, I don't know, for me, I think it follows me if I posted like something consistent, then it would work. But like mine, honestly, it says that if I post at noon, I would get a lot of likes on my picture. That's when most of my followers are active at noon. And I tried to post at noon once a while ago, and it didn't work for me. So I post in the morning because I figured like in the morning, you know, people are going to see it throughout the day because the feed is not, it used to be chronological, but it's not chronological anymore. So I don't think I mean, I think it matters somewhat when you post, because posting in the morning, I always think is best, or at night, because in the morning, people are kind of like, a lot of people wake up and they look at their Instagram feed. That's what they do when they wake up, or when they're sitting at home at night in the house around this time in the evening, they're scrolling through their Instagram feed, sitting on the couch looking at TV. So like, to me, that would be the best time to post, because I'm not really looking at Instagram at noon, but I don't know. I used to look at the analytics, but it doesn't really mean anything to me anymore.
Lori, what's the single best way to increase traffic and engagement on social media? And is there anything that might be surprising to us?
You mean traffic in stories or in posts or anything?
I guess stories, because you could see who viewed it. But just, you know, engage comments. Comments and direct DMs.
I think consistency is just really important. I think if you zone out for a week or so, then people are going to zone out on you.
Be done in about 15.
I mean, I actually like hurt my heel last week walking, because I do walk a lot, and I have people this week asking me how my heel is. So, you know, I just think that people need to be interested in what you're doing. And I think the city is a perfect place to show and bring people in and you know, ask questions about certain things. So I would say just be consistent and, you know the people that you're posting to. I mean, I could probably travel all around the world and know somebody in Amsterdam and London and California and Seattle and Florida and New Hampshire, just because of the interactions I've had with people on Instagram.
Is there anyone else who has any thoughts on increasing traffic and engagement?
I just checked my insights because I was curious, because I rarely go there. And like I said, the stories in the AMAs have worked wonders. And I'm just like, this week alone, in the last 24 hours alone, I'm up almost 1,500% on interactions. And that's solely based on a single story AMA that I started yesterday at like 4 p.m. So, I mean, it does work if you engage.
Interesting. Okay, so we have a couple of questions from the audience. I think we already discussed this, but does anyone have any, does anyone recommend any specific software to help with tasks required on Instagram? But you guys all said you just posted directly.
I mean, I hadn't been, so I had taken a long break, or kind of mini break, where I would just post like a little bit maybe once a week. But I did just kind of download another app, because the one I was having before was disconnected and didn't work anymore. So now I do plan my grid again. I'm starting to do it again on Planoly, just because, I don't know, I go on periods where I'm like, now I want a border and I want everything to line up, and now I want it all messy and real, and I'm on a border lineup kick. But so I don't actually send it to Instagram through Planoly, but I look at it to see the grid and how it looks together. And then also kind of like, if I want to go like, okay, this week, what do I want to post? I will put it out in the grid, like in Planoly, to kind of plan the grid.
Interesting. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, here's another question from the audience. If Instagram disappeared overnight, how would you sustain your brand and work? Would you still be making the work that you typically post to your feed if you no longer have your Instagram audience?
I want to hear Joshua answer this.
Yeah, because I have such a tortured relationship with shows. It's like, I mean, I imagine we're all like this as artists. There's a part of us that just want to be purists, right? Like, I just want to create the work and find my path. So I'm a little bit of a romantic, and then I'm a little bit of a realist. Um, the truth is, a lot of the work I get has been divorced from traditional routes, right? Like a lot of it. I've been in DC a long time, so I've worked for NGOs and nonprofits, and sometimes I get those jobs because they're like, my buddy Josh is a photographer, or I was on the scene a bunch, and so like I was Sweet Green's photographer for a bunch of years because I knew the guys, and so it wasn't. But then I also like had enough like luck with like New York art buyers that I would like, get to do some major brand shoots, but it there was never really like a super like formalized business strategy plan. So like part of me is like it's very intuition based. At this point, I don't feel like I get a ton of work from Instagram. I think it, like I said before, I think it opens doors, right? Like, I recently reached out to a scholar, an academic who was working on something that I thought was like really amazing, and I wanted to do a project with her. I don't think anyone's gonna maybe commission me to do this project or anything, but I think I was able to reach out to her Instagram. She was like, "Oh, this guy's serious. He works in stuff that seems to like kind of cross pollinate with what I do. I'll get back to him." And then that led to a phone call. And so those are the ways I'm trying to leverage Instagram. If it went away, yeah, I'd still just be shooting, And I think, yeah, you'll hear me. I get a little like kind of like mystical about the process, but I can't really help it. But I too think like if I post it, I'll get work, and if I build my audience, it'll lead to things. And so it is a lot of alchemy. But if it went away, I think I'd be okay too. And I just go knock on doors, and I talk to people, and I call people up, and I think maybe it'll probably take anxiety out of my life.
Sounds like you're ready to hop
Instagram,
off.
Instagram, Robinhood, all these just take away. Me and Jarrett were talking about crypto trading. I was like, oh my god! I was like,
I totally joined that forum. I was like, I gotta be part of this.
And I'm like, then I like post something, and I'm like, yeah, there's like that dopamine cycle that hits, and then you're like, did I see something stupid, or what are they gonna think about me, or yeah. So there's a lot of social anxiety that comes from it that I think I do without. And then I look at other people, and I'm like, wow, they do it so gracefully. Like I look at Brian Shutmat's work or somebody like that. I know you're a fan of his, Jared. I'm like, just it's beautiful and soulful work, and they seem to be detached from the rest of it. They can just kind of create amazing soulful stuff and not have to like interact in the playgrounds that the rest of us feel like we have to occupy. So I'm an idealist and a realist all at once.
Lori, how about you? Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jarrett.
No, go ahead. Wait.
Well, I could ask you as well. What would you do without Instagram?
So, are you going, Lori?
No, go ahead. I'm fine.
Okay. So Instagram is a very, very, very small portion of my photography. So because it's very, very small portion because there are other things that I'm involved in. If Instagram didn't exist, it would not hurt a little, but it would take away some of that social part of it as far as the that tool that Instagram provides from that perspective of marketing. But like if it was to go away today, I have a art gallery that that hosts a lot of different artists, and we use Instagram as a tool, but we print people's we've printed thousands and thousands of people's pictures over the course of almost 5 years, and I have a photography studio, and I have 4 amazing photographers that are residents, and, we promote their work, and, it's just a lot of other things that are going on besides Instagram. And I'm going to kind of go off of that too, is that is a possibility, is Instagram isn't all that there is. And you should not, a lot of people, that's their entire, photo gallery, and they put everything into Instagram, and, it probably won't go away. But I find that some of my, Instagram use it for the purpose that it serves, but also explore things that are outside of the application. Because at the end of the day, it's just a social media application. And, people put so much stock into this social media application that they kind of forget that other things exist. Like, not to promote another thing, but like, I like 500px. And I don't know if anybody else has heard of 500px, but to me, 500px is like Instagram for like serious photographers. It is very intimidating, but I love the fact that it's intimidating, because it's the work on that, that website, or it's like Flickr times a million, I would say. And but if Instagram was to go away today, I have a lot of different ventures that I'm doing, and a lot of different clients that I'm working with, and then like this whole community of people that I've met from, and I get a joy of just framing people's work. So that's what I would be doing, is doing that.
Okay, well, so we have time for one more question. So the last question is, and I'll start with you, Lori, since we were going to ask you the last one. What is one actionable thing you'd recommend to the audience to find more success on Instagram?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Can you ask it one more time, Eli? I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
What's one actionable thing you'd recommend to the audience to find more success on Instagram?
I would have to say, just, be yourself, have fun with it. Don't take it serious. I don't know if that's a right answer, but, and always like your pictures. I like my pictures.
You like your
You too,
I have
Laura.
a like button on my picture.
I do it with a round number.
It used to be where you'd have to wait till there were like 12 likes before you could hit that like button. But I like my
I'm the
picture.
first one that likes my pictures.
And I do it
I'm the
because
first like.
you have to like what you do. And you have to like what you do. And I like my picture.
That's that lesson. It's a great one. Actually, I'm always like, if I have 199, I'm like, I can have 200.
Right.
Jennifer, do you have any thoughts on one actionable thing our audience could do?
So we're not going to just get rid of Instagram and start roller skating accounts on TikTok. Is that what we're?
We're going to focus on Instagram for this question.
Okay, yeah, that's my dream. You're going to follow my roller skating account. I think, just kind of repeating what everybody else, go out there and be social, like find your community, and find a hashtag, or people that that like the same things, or same type of photography, and just go out there and comment, spend a little time building that relationship with people. Just be a little more social on it, and it'll be reciprocated.
Jared, stories?
I would make good work, make work that you're excited about, and then share it.
Like it.
Like it, yes. I'm going to start doing that now.
That's totally.
Okay, Melissa?
Yeah, I would just say be less concerned with the number of followers, and just quality over quantity. I mean, and for me, that translates to the relationships and reaching out to the 100 people that are real on there that I want to get to know, or that I want to work with, or that I want to go have a beer or tacos with if I'm in their city. You know, like I was laughing to myself because I was remembering when they cleared the bots out of Instagram and like all those spam accounts, and people were losing like thousands of followers and freaking out. And it was like, dude, they weren't real people anyway. Like you were so stoked on that number that it was 20,000, that now that you're down to, 15 or whatever, like your world sucks all of a sudden. And it's like, they weren't even real people. Like they were computers, and they were, like Russian spam bots. And, like that number is conflated, and it's not a real, it's not real. No part of that number is real. I don't want to know 30,000 people, like I don't have the mental capacity for having relationships with 30,000 people, but, I do have the mental capacity for reaching out if I'm going to be in Los Angeles and saying, letting people know in the story, like, hey guys, I'm coming to LA this week. Like, who's around? Like, let's get tacos, and trying to meet the local photo community there, and it's like, just use it for what it's really good for. And that's creating like real, actual foundational relationships, and not some inflated sense of self-worth. It's not real anyway.
Joshua?
Yeah, I think, as Jarrett said, posting good content, trying to be more social. I think that like that's sometimes something that I lack. I've noticed like,
Gotta switch my camera.
Yeah, kind of like a little bit like niche communities are interesting. Like I say that because, well, this doesn't not a niche community, but I have this photo that I took that is really like a cotton candy of a photo, quite literally a sky holding candy. It's the most like pop sugary photo ever. But I really like the picture of this guy selling cotton candy in Nicaragua. It was actually in the town of Catarina, Jen. So it was like above Granada. And I had like, they do like that, they do like this festival every year around Christmas time where they all like dress up in costume. So it was really cool. It's like syncretic Catholicism. Anyway, I was like up there and there was a picture of this guy, long story short. And I post this a couple of months later, and like I picked up like thousands of followers, because I think like the Nicaraguenses, they're not used to like seeing themselves represented in like international media. And it was really interesting to see like how many users I picked up. They were like so proud. And then so my partner's mother, like her family like posted this on Facebook. They didn't know it was me even. And it became this like kind of like big deal. And it got back around at like, no, this is Josh, this is Dahlia's husband that took this picture. And I thought that was really cool. So just to say like, yeah, like find your people, and you don't even know who your people are. And I wasn't even going to post the picture because I was like, oh, it's not really deep or heady or anything like that. And it really spoke to the Nicaraguans. And I think it was around the time of a lot of the flooding and Rivas and other places too. So there was like a sense of pride. So yeah, connect to like people's joy and to that sense of community. I don't know if that answered any questions, but
yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And Jarrett?
Yeah, it's I'm going to piggyback off the same thing that everybody else said. It's just a social media app, and be social. Like, talk to people, interact with people. Comments mean a lot. I know there used to be this, I don't even know if he posts anymore, Lori, but John Lujan, remember John Lujan?
Oh yeah, he doesn't.
He made a comment and he said he looks at one comment to him as 100 likes. And like, sometimes like when you take the time, even for other people, I like when people comment on my photos because it gives me a chance to communicate with people. And then people like when you comment on their photos as well. And then that creates that friendship. Like I can go to California tomorrow and probably find somebody that I met on Instagram that will show me around California. I can go to Florida. I can go almost anywhere in the world, and just based off of this social media app and our mutual love for, photography and taking pictures, we have this connection. Like, I've known Lori for, I don't know, And
Almost
Jen
10
for like a
years.
long time. Yeah. And like we met on this app because we all love photography and like we're friends. And it's really cool. And I know Jarrett too. I guess, you know, we know through this app, and I wouldn't have known anybody and other people that are like on the other pages on this meeting too. You know, so it's really cool to have a place where, you know, we all kind of have a love for photography. And, you know, a few years ago, if you love photography, like I was the only one out of my friends when I was little that loved photography. And like I found Instagram, it's like, oh, it's a whole bunch of people that love photography like I do. So, I mean, it was a good place for me to be able to, you know, meet people that share the same love for, you know, taking photos that I did, as I did. So that's why I say, you know, yeah, that's it, I'm done.
I think that joyousness that Jarrett speaks to is like actually really important. You know, like almost like remembering the innocence in it too. And like, you know, like when I first got it, I didn't put any of like my pro photos on there. Like I would take just like the stuff I took with my phone camera. It was more fun because like it gave you like a limitation to like what you were using, and like, you know, it wasn't bulky like your camera, and there was like a little more intimacy and aliveness to it. And yeah, so I think that's a good point. It kind of reminds me too. I often like want to reconnect to like just the joy of it.
Nice. So those are all my questions. I think we're going to have some time for some audience questions, but I just wanted to first bring it back to Mike whenever he's ready. Mike,
Yeah, well, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the panel for joining us. But I know we're past 8 o'clock already, and you know, we did take some of the audience questions, I think. So I don't want to keep everybody on too late. So, but just wanted to again say thank you to everybody for sharing all your time and your expertise tonight. And yeah, this was a fantastic panel. I really appreciate it very much.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
So one of the things I really loved was everybody talking about sort of giving back to the community, and that it seems like sometimes Instagram seems like this, how can I get more followers, more, and it's about sort of almost like taking, like we talk about taking pictures instead of making pictures. And what the common theme that seemed to be coming up tonight was about building the relationships and sort of giving back to the ecosystem instead of just continually trying to draw from it. And some of the other comments I heard were that, you know, you could go to a different city and find people, you know, connect with people that you met on Instagram. So here's a little plug for not just APA, but for other professional organizations that, you know, being involved in whether it's something like APA or NPPA or ASMP is a great way to sort of build those communities. And that's really what we try to do too, is to build these supportive communities. So you could go to, you know, something in Los Angeles and find an event there that might be interesting. And it's a great way, you know, as photographers, we sometimes have this tendency to see ourselves as lone wolves. And that's kind of romanticized, that like, oh, we can do it alone and we don't need anybody else. We're social, you know, humans are social creatures. And I think we really need community. You know, there's a reason why things like Instagram or Facebook or whatever thrive, is because we need each other. And so what I'm really kind of wrapping it up, what I'm really hearing is just, you know, being a participant in the platform, not just a poster.
Right. Well said.
Yeah.
As I told people, both my parents are college professors, so I will talk for like hours on any given subject. I have to shut myself up.
Oh, I really appreciate it.
Do you guys have time to stick around for any more questions?
Sure.
Okay. Mike and Matt, if you could, you know, poke around and see if we have anything that you'd like to add.
I think Mike has a good list going.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, go for it.
All right. All right. Well, let's see here. Okay, so panelists, how do you deal with social media just being exhausting? There's so many platforms we as people check into every day on top of working and living one's life. So how do you create that work-life balance when you've got social media to try to keep up with?
Well, I'm a creature of habit. So, I spend chunks amount of time during the day and I'm pretty well disciplined, I think.
I go on lots of breaks. I mean, I kind of go through these cycles where I'll be posting every day and responding, and then I don't for a while. It's not on purpose, but I have a job and 3 kids and, lots of other things going on. So, and I'm just okay with that. I think that one of the things that's really important that when you're thinking about it is like why you're doing it. I mean, some of us, it's, we're professionals, we're trying to get our work seen by certain people. Other people are building these super social networks, and that's just really much more of what they do. I think like separating like why you're doing it and thinking about how much time you're putting in and if it's going to get you those things that you want or you're getting that out of it. And if not, then it's okay to just step back and not.
I also think it depends on what's going on outside our homes because, during the pandemic and we had the Black Lives Matter protest last summer, we had an insurrection. We've had businesses closing. I'm really big at trying to support local and, I get a lot of foodies that, want to feed me and I'm all for that. And I don't have a food post, but I can do stories and promote businesses. So as long as they feed me, I don't charge them, and I promote small businesses. So I mean, it just, I think it changes with whatever's going around in your life at the time and outside your door.
Yeah.
We appreciate you at Dolcezza. We're grateful for
my favorite.
Yeah.
Oh boy, and see, like even my favorite Dolcezza closed. On 14th Street. That was my place where I went and I had to go to the bathroom. Always went to the bathroom there. I knew the code combination to the bathroom.
It looks like DuPont and City Center will remain, despite we didn't think we were going to keep anything open, but the landlords were gracious. Yeah, it was a tough time. It was really a tough time for local business.
I know, and it breaks my heart.
Dolcezza?
Yeah, you like Dolcezza?
Are you
I'm like a longtime friend and a kind of investor, but also Rob's a big brother of mine. He's like, we like to go along. He's kind of my brother from another mother. We both weirdly came out of Atlanta and didn't know each other, but had very similar paths. But yeah, just like when you were speaking to that, I just remembered that. So I wanted to thank you.
Yeah, one of my favorite places to hang out and use the bathroom.
Yeah, nice bathroom. We need that as photographers on the road all the time.
Absolutely.
We need caffeine and places to relieve ourselves.
Where's some other questions? We have a lot of people from all over the country here.
Do you have one you'd like to?
I think Mike was about to share one.
Yeah, well, we've got another one here. I don't think we really got into too much in the conversation. It says, I like to write an extended caption to tell a bit of a story with my Instagram post, but it can be time consuming. Any tips for a best approach for writing in the amount of writing for a post?
So sometimes I for the most part, like I write long captions. So most of the time, I would say like 90% of my long captions, I type them on the phone, and I use save it as a draft, and then go back and do everything else. But sometimes if like I really know what I want to write, my captions exist prior to the photo, so I type them up and I email them to myself. in a Word document, or and then I just copy and paste that caption if I know what I'm going to write. But I'm weird, so that's how I do it. But yeah, I'll type it up if I have a complete thought, and I have captions, and then like right now I have like notes, and like on the notes app of my phone I have a whole bunch of captions that don't have photos to go with them yet. So I mean, but that's my way of doing it. Not everybody posts that way, but I don't really see a problem with long captions. But they give you a character limit, and I've reached that character limit a lot. But so, but and typing it helps me not reach that character limit on typing it on a phone. But saving it as a draft is a good way to, like, if you're going to write a long caption and you don't finish that thought, like saving it as a draft, and then you can come back to it and then finish the rest of it.
I don't read long captions.
Yeah, most people don't, but like for those people that do, I always put a thing saying at the end saying thank you for reading.
So how many hashtags will you put on something like that? That's always sort of my question, is I feel like I'm hashtagging things and I'm never sure if it's worthwhile or useful or.
I use 20.
I think if you're telling a story and it's about something personal, and then you put, hashtag, I don't know, my Southern living. I don't think it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't put hashtags in my captions. So I put hashtags as the first comment, because I mean, I don't know. I usually, like, because if you put, I write so long of captions that I can't fit hashtags in it. So, and I use 28 hashtags for the most part. And but I don't put them in the caption. I put them as the first comment. And they I don't know if they have the same effect. I don't know if they do. I don't know if they don't. But that's where I put them.
Is there an advantage to having hashtags in the first comment? Like, does that cheat the?
I have no idea.
Okay, it's not like a strategy to beat the system or something, or to beat
it just allows you to write longer captions without putting the
okay.
hashtags in your initial caption.
How do you guys work with, if you have a particular project, do you do it in one post and have like a series of images from that project, or do you spread it out through several posts?
You mean like carousel, like putting more than one photo on one post?
Right.
I think it all depends on what you negotiate. I try to get that negotiated before I do my post. So I know if they want 5 pictures, I'm not going to do 5 individual pictures. I'll do a carousel for sure.
Well, I mean more like a series. For example, like Jarrett, I know you have some series of let's say like your basketball series. I think Berry Farms is called. So like, do you post that as one post with a series of images, or do you do it over several posts?
There is no method to my madness. So like if I did a thing with, like, it was a series of, like, I don't know. If I do a series, it depends. Sometimes I'll do a series in one post as a carousel, and then sometimes I'll do a series as single posts. But like for like a brand or something like that, like Lori said, it depends on what the agreement is. If it like to be honest, like when I was doing the thing with Capital One Careers, for example, like it was one post a quarter, and that was just 4 posts for the year. And I took a lot of photos when I was there because the building was beautiful. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do like 2 or 3 per carousel or something. Because I'm not going to use those photos for anything else, and they're not going to use those photos for anything else. So like, if they're my pictures and they're not going to post it to anything that they have, like, what is the purpose of me saving photos of a building for my own purpose that I'm not going to post anywhere else for no other reason, you know? But and I'm still getting paid for the post over the course of the year. So it really depends on the situation, and it depends on, you know, for the sponsored posts and things like that. If that's different than my personal ones. If I have a personal series, I'm just gonna post it whenever I feel like it, or however, you know, I want to post it. But now, just one more thing. Now, I post carousels because, like, Instagram has, because of Instagram and because Instagram favors the portrait style of taking photos, you know, we often lose. I felt like I lost out. When I go somewhere and I take a picture, I'm automatically taking a photo in like landscape because that's what I think. You know, I don't think about turning the camera sideways. That's not how I was taught to shoot, you know, when I was learning photography. So like, I'm automatically like with my camera, you know, in landscape versus portrait. But Instagram, you know, kind of puts you in that thinking of it in, you know, the feed style if you're going that way. So I found that people would miss out on the wide, and I like to shoot wide, so people would miss out on that. So now I find that I try to do a carousel where, and then you don't get the whole image. So I'll post like the Instagram savvy image, and then the next one I'll post the larger scale one so that you can see the entire image that I was trying to take. And then I'll post the landscape version of it so you can see that. And then I'll post like a split image of that large one, because you get to see everything. And like, why not give the person everything? And then the strategy behind that, honestly, is that the trick to that, because it does help, is that Instagram wants you to stay on a person's picture for as long as possible, which increases the engagement. So if a person is swiping through a carousel or reading a long caption, or even an engaging caption, and the longer they stay on your feed, at the initial time that you post, that leaves that person on the feed, which is going to have the algorithm show it to more people. Like,
that was the one tip that we should have had like 2 hours ago.
No, but that, you know, it's a social media app and they want to make money. They want to keep people on their application. So the longer they stay, like when you write an engaging caption and people read through your caption, or they stay on your picture for a long time, that's how algorithms work. You know, it's going to make people, you know, that's in being more engaging. So while I want to give people more because I think that they should have more, they should see what I really wanted to say. Because sometimes, like for example, like when I first did the community collective, right? I had a lady who all the pictures were square, and that was a deal I had to do square pictures. So because the picture was a square, there was a little portion off the top of the photo that gave that person's photo a little bit more meaning, and that was the reason they took it. And me making it a square made her really, really upset because I didn't know what the difference was, but me making that photo a square really made her feel bad because that took away the purpose of her taking a picture. And then so now, you know, Instagram, it makes you crop that photo to like something equivalent to like a 4x5. And I shoot wide, so 3x2 is what, you know, most of your digital cameras shoot. So you lose that. Sometimes you can lose that purpose of the picture. So in me doing that, you know, ends up giving people more of a photo. And then sometimes it doesn't work as a portrait, it works as a landscape. But overall, yes, the longer people stay on your post, the more engagement it gets, and the more Instagram shows that post to other people.
We're gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much again, guys.
So great to
Good luck with the birth, Joshua.
Yeah, good luck.